We are just 8 hours away from tonight's Pennsylvania Senate debate, and you can watch it live exclusively here on Newsmax tonight at 8 p.m. It's moderated by Greta Van Susteren, and all the candidates are expected to be there. Also, Tom Basile will have the latest from Grove City, Pennsylvania, coming up as well.
And John, we now know the official matchup for the U.S. Senate general election in the state of Ohio. It will be Republican J.D. Vance facing off Democrat Tim Ryan. This is the race to replace GOP Senator Rob Portman, who is retiring. Of course, Trump's endorsement proved to be a massive factor in Vance's win. And for more on that, we want to head out to our national correspondent, Mike Carter, joining us live from Cincinnati, Ohio, there where he's been with the Vance camp today. A lot of happy faces there, Mike.
A lot of happy faces for sure, Bianca and John, this afternoon. Well, here in Ohio, much like in Indiana, Donald Trump was 22-0 when it came to the candidates he supported in both the Ohio and Indiana primaries on Tuesday, but no bigger win for the Trump camp than that of J.D. Vance here Tuesday night. Trump's throwing his support around J.D. Vance just 3 weeks ago, and that was big support with your J.D. Vance, having the former president on your side. Why J.D. Vance? Well, he's a former CNN analyst. He's a former San Francisco finance bro. He is a Marine Corps veteran, but you know, this is a guy who appeals to both the left and the right. You think he's the author of Hillbilly Elegy, a book that became a worldwide film, a Ron Howard film. It appealed to folks, Democrats, Republicans alike, and that's something that Donald Trump liked in a very purple state, a very swing state of Ohio. Donald Trump, this was going to be a big litmus test for the former president last night, and it paid off with J.D. Vance. He was successful in beating Republican challenger State Senator Matt Dolan and former Ohio Treasurer Josh Mandel. In particular, Matt Dolan, whose family owns the Cleveland Guardians, formerly the Cleveland Indians, quickly chose to endorse J.D. Vance once last night's results went final. But it wasn't his opponents who Vance said he was glad to have defeated last night, but rather what he calls a fake biased news media.
I have absolutely got to thank the 45th, the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. A lot of the fake news media out there, and there are some good ones in the back there. There's some bad ones too, let's be honest. But they wanted to write a story that this campaign would be the death of Donald Trump's America First agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, it ain't the death of the America First agenda.
So J.D. Mandel was successful in his bid for this Senate seat here last night. He did face a lot of criticisms, though, throughout his campaign. A lot of folks here in Ohio, particularly those folks on Josh Mandel's camp, the former treasurer here of Ohio, said J.D. Vance, he hasn't done enough to appeal to the religious right here in Ohio. And obviously that's big news given everything that's happening at the Supreme Court this week with Roe v. Wade. Mandel even tweeting this last night. If J.D. Vance had his way in 2016, Roe v. Wade would remain standing for generations. Those are harsh words coming from Josh Mandel, but J.D. Vance able to move along swiftly. Almost confused my words there, John. Almost said J.P. Mandel, something that even the former president got confused this past Sunday in Nebraska, guys.
Exactly. Well, you'd be in good company there, right? So, but he won, and that's, you know, where things stand today, and that's all that matters, I guess. You know, Mike, leading up to Trump's endorsement, though, of J.D. Vance last month, there was a bit of movement among some Republicans in the state of Ohio for him not to tell Trump not to endorse Vance. We maybe know why with the MAGA crowd and past comments, but why particularly with people in Ohio, Republicans?
Sure, yeah. I mean, you had dozens of Republicans who wrote a letter to former President Trump last month asking him, please don't endorse this man. They didn't believe that he was fully invested in the America First movement, the MAGA movement. Back in 2016, J.D. Vance even calling Trump a fraud at one point, calling some of his supporters racist. He's since walked back those comments and apologized last year for them, hoping that voters wouldn't hold him into account for those comments. When asked about this, or speaking to this point last week at a rally that he attended in Delaware, Ohio with J.D. Vance, Donald Trump had this to say, quote, he's a guy that said some blank about me. He did, but you know what? Every one of the others did also. In fact, if I went by that standard, I don't think I would have endorsed anybody in the country. So there you have it. Donald Trump quick to make amends with J.D. Vance's camp. Both him his son, Don Jr., have been out stumping for J.D. Vance, and it paid off here in Ohio last night.
Mike, if you have any room in your carry-on, bring me back a bottle of that Montgomery and barbecue sauce from Cincinnati as well. That stuff is so good. Enjoy it.
You got it, John.
Great to see you as well.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, let's welcome in now Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton joining us live. General, great to have you back with us.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So quickly, I wanted to talk to you about these Trump endorsements. You obviously have one. You're still in this runoff, though, with George P. Bush. And I just wanted to ask you, as we get closer to this runoff, what do you think will be the biggest factor in this race for Texas Attorney General here? Your endorsement from Donald Trump, your record, perhaps, or you think it's something else?
I think it's both of those. I think a Trump endorsement is the most valuable endorsement I've ever seen in politics. So I'm certainly grateful for the president for his endorsement and his support of me. We had a great working relationship while he was in office, and I really appreciate him. But I do think it's the record. I mean, you look at what I've accomplished over the last 8 years, and you can compare it to my opponent, and it's a pretty stark difference. And so if you want somebody in Texas to lead the way and to continue the fight against the Biden administration, big tech, and other things, I think I'm the only choice you can make.
Yeah, we hear about these endorsements, and everyone says President Trump went 33-0 in Texas, and there's just that little asterisk with this runoff race. But again, you know, runoffs it was a very tightly contested, a lot of candidates in there, and I think what these races say to us, you know, into the Republican Party is how competitive the party is right now. It's a much different situation than we see with Democrats.
No, there's no doubt about it. I mean, this is still a Republican state. And so in order to hold office, you have to run as a Republican, which is why we have very competitive races. And I don't think that's necessarily bad. I think competition is a good thing. It allows people to get their views out there and let the voters make their choice about what they want.
Yeah, fair competition is, I think, one of kind of the, you know, fundamental things about the Republican Party, individual responsibility, those types of things. But let's leave that aside, because I know you're tweeting about this. A lot of folks seeing this report from Vice Motherboard, kind of a strange source for this, but they're following the CDC, who apparently paid for location data from millions of cell phones to track compliance to pandemic measures. Now, it's creepy. I don't know if it's legal, but you might expect this from the NSA or even the FBI, but the CDC is tracking us as well? No thanks.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. We're certainly looking into this. I'm not surprised that this is happening with our federal government, with the leadership that we have. I don't think really, unless you're under criminal investigation, that even those other organizations should be able to just monitor your activities like the CDC is doing now. And, you know, I hope we get to the bottom of this, because I do not think this is right. And if this is not illegal, it should be.
Yeah, I mean, this is what happens when any agency gets access to surveillance powers. They're going to surveil people. This deserves a closer inspection as well. Another topic, too, to discuss with you is this reaction we've seen from Democrats to this draft brief by Samuel Alito. Apparently, Roe v. Wade is going to be overturned here. But take a listen to something that President Biden said back in 2006. The Democratic Party has moved quite a bit from where the current president used to be on this.
I do not view abortion as a choice and a right. I think it's always a tragedy, and I think that it should be rare and safe. And I think we should be focusing on how to limit the number of abortions.
Now, if you were asked Joe Biden today, he would say it's a tragedy that voters in states like Texas and Georgia and other places where they're passing these heartbeat abortion bans, he says it's a tragedy that they have that Democratic option. What do you think changed for Joe Biden? And the Democratic Party, really, quite frankly.
No, I think that's the Joe Biden that I think people thought they were getting when they voted for him. And clearly, he's nowhere close to that position now. And I'm not going to apologize for Texas being a pro-life state. Defending the right of the unborn to live seems like a fairly reasonable constitutional right to have in this country. And I think it's great that the Supreme Court has finally recognized, and we actually drafted a brief with 24 other states that made the argument that the Supreme Court got in this business 50 years ago, and they shouldn't have. It wasn't their obligation. It wasn't their duty. They weren't supposed to. And they've done a relatively bad job. As the justices have changed, the law continues to evolve, and the states have no idea what they're signing up for. And they're doing the right thing, sending this back to the states to let people vote with their feet.
Yeah. I didn't want to put too much stock into it until we knew it was legit or not. But after John Roberts confirmed the Alito brief, I read it again, and I was struck by the simplicity of his argument. It's I think in a way, I'm not a lawyer here. You can speak to this better than I can, but the argument itself is pretty simple. This is not something that the Constitution gives the federal government authority to regulate, and therefore they can't.
That's exactly right. I went to law school and graduated in 1991 from the University of Virginia, and my constitutional law professor, a relatively liberal guy, acknowledged that Roe v. Wade was made up. There was no precedent for it. And he made the argument that we want courts making up law, but that's not the way the Constitution was set up. That would give inordinate power to 9 justices to decide for everyone in the country without any debate, without any voting, that they're going to make these laws up. And that's not how our constitutional republic works. And so Alito's right. This has been done poorly. The Supreme Court shouldn't have taken it, and they haven't done a good job with this. This should go back to the states, for each state elected by their people to make that decision.
Yeah, that's democracy, and that's also the federal system that we have, the federalist system, I should say. We have these states, and they're supposed to be these kind of incubators for ideas. And, you know, obviously California, other states going a completely different direction on this. And, you know, a lot of liberals, I think, are surprised when you tell them, no, abortion's not illegal today. Nothing's actually changed, and they don't want to hear that, though. One last topic for you, General. We saw the Secretary of Homeland Security on Capitol Hill today, Alejandro Mayorkas, wanted to play an exchange with Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana. He asked about this new Disinformation Governance Board, and here is the Secretary.
One, we do not discuss internal hiring processes. 2, I was not aware of that fact. 3, as a Secretary of Homeland Security, I am responsible for the decisions of the department. And 4, it is my understanding that Ms. Jankowicz is a subject matter expert in the field in which she will be working on behalf of the department.
And then I would add 6, his understanding isn't very good. He obviously has not looked into her background. And why should our taxpayer dollars fund anything like this, Democrat, Republican, or otherwise? This is, again, not a responsibility of the federal government.
Absolutely. And again, I think it goes against our First Amendment rights. For the government to be focused on our speech, that is not appropriate for them to do. And that gets very close to what happens in other countries, in China and Russia, and what happened in Germany in the 1930s. And I don't think Americans, whatever your political view is, should put up with this, because if the government starts monitoring speech, your speech, they may ultimately monitor everybody's speech. And certainly that's a long way from the First Amendment.
Yeah, it's a line from a movie, The Big Lebowski, but it's true. The Supreme Court has roundly rejected prior restraint previously, and that's what this board would do. We've seen the dangers of that with the Hunter Biden laptop story getting squashed on social media. It is a big issue. General, great to have you with us.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right, and good luck in your primary runoff as well.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.